Oh, but. I'm sure got that thing later. I was looking on the radar. He got that whole area covered up. Oh, wait a couple minutes. I don't know. You heard from saying? I haven't heard anything from. Well, we'll just give her 2 more minutes. I know it's hot in here and all, but I think we can handle that. Yeah, I think so. Okay. That may be her there. Well, good morning. Let's get started with our August meeting of the Somerville Tree Protection Board. We have a slimmed down schedule today. We have only one applicant and we have no previous minutes to review. So let's move right on to the applicant. The address is not right in front of me. 106 Barrington Court. Who wishes to speak? I wasn't there yesterday, but these gentlemen were, so I'm going to be listening.
Yes, sir. So we want to construct a paver patio in the backyard. It's a 22.5 by 20 with a fire pit, seating wall on the backside of it. The trees requested to be taken out are a willow oak and a water oak. Behind that, the plan shows it'll impact the critical root zone by 8 or 9 feet.
Out of how many?
Sorry?
8 or 9?
Out of the trees that are 17.5 inches, and the other one is 21.5. So, or 21. So I guess out of 21, 8 or 9 feet out of that. So a little over a third, almost half.
In an arc or in a straight line?
It's an arc, but it's about the radius of that.
Okay, very shallow radius.
Yes.
Okay.
It won't be that long. It's only I think 10 foot wide, but it's a shallow arc on the backside. They wish to resod the entire yard. We'll cut out the sod, replace it. While the sod is cut out, put in an irrigation system for the new sod and all the new landscapes going around. Basically, all the shrubs around the house will be taken out, and then we will replace with something more just up to date, efficient, what they prefer. Let's see.
Are there large shrubs? If you don't mind my asking a question.
No. So we got azaleas going down the right side of the house. We'll have a leopard plant in front around here are the 3 trees in the front yard.
Oh, that's
Yes, they're right
picture.
there. We got more Sanquas going on the right side around those 2 trees. Got a couple T-alls in front of that. Where it says flower bed right there. Yeah, there's a little above that. Right, and to the left and down. Yeah. So there's a couple T-alls framing in that right there.
They're all coming out.
No, that's what's going in.
Oh, that's
What's there now is boxwoods and hollies. that's what, is coming out.
The reason I asked that is that how big are these mature plants
The ones that are there,
that are being removed? Yeah.
they're, waist high.
What I was wondering about is if they're in the root zone of the tree. Digging them out as well as replacing them within a larger tree could do serious damage, if it's in a critical area of the root zone of any of the trees that you wish to save.
Oh, yeah.
But I haven't been there, so I'm just asking theoretical
Yeah,
questions.
and that may be an issue, when you remove them, disturbing some of the roots from the trees. And I think that's when we started talking about maybe coming up with an arborist plan.
There are no plants around the trees which take out back.
Okay,
No, they're just talking about
Oh,
on the front of the house.
oh.
right, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
so, will it impact any dominant root zone on there? I do not believe so. Are there gonna be some feeder roots that go through there? Sure, but every house in Sarno's got feeder roots going.
Yeah,
through
so I
there, you
know.
what I mean, so,
Yeah.
we'll obviously be as careful as possible, but, I don't see it as a concern, as a help to those trees I wouldn't think twice about it. Now, if it was like those junipers and stuff that are around those other
Right.
couple of trees, stuff like that, we will need to be a little more cautious with that for sure. But
They're about-
they're shallow rooted. I don't see that being a problem as well. But if an arborist plan makes you feel better about it, by all means, that's something we can get. But as long as I've been doing this, we've never lost or had any kind of decline from a tree from shrubs this kind of size. It's not, there's no trunk to them, something like that. They're surface rooted plants, stuff like that. It's not.
Okay. I'm just,
changing back.
they all saw them, so I was just asking because I've dealt with that before personally and have been surprised moving large shrubs and putting new ones in. Oh, wait a minute, we got a real big root mat here, but you obviously don't have that
I
situation.
think you're far enough away with this
Okay.
one. This won't be a problem. And it's right up against the house. So if it is a problem, those roots are right next to the foundation of the home.
Yeah, well, you want them gone too, right? Yes, sir.
So like I said, and then we want to resod the yard, put in an irrigation system. As we saw in the thing earlier, we want to replace the driveway. There's an existing driveway there. It's concrete. It's just worn out, starting to crack. Exposed aggregates coming to the top. It's just time for a new driveway. The walkway going to the front of the house right there, in that rectangle, yes, sir. So there's a curved concrete walkway there now, but when we reform this before it would just make it. It actually flows a little bit better right there to 90 that all. And then there's a 10 by 12 patio they wish to put right there in front as well, right off the stoop to the right, correct? And, that right there, there's 3 boxwoods there, I believe, but we will have they're far enough back out of the critical root zone. Those, I think it's 2 water oaks and a gum right there. They're far enough out of that root zone, but that won't be an impact. To them as well. On the back left of the house, we'd like to put in a drain, from there coming up to the front. And, we're talking about like a 12 by 12 box and then like a 4-inch solid pipe to come out to the front. Reason why we would use solid pipes that perforate is because the roots from that poplar tree will eventually crush that perforated pipe and we'll have to go back in again. And then Mr. Burbidge, you suggested the air straight going through there to put the pipe in. So we looked into that over the weekend. That is an option, but the problem is you're still gonna have to cut those roots. Because how are we gonna get a 4-inch pipe to stay on grade to go through there? The air may blow all the dirt out of there. The roots are still there. How are we gonna channel the pipe through there is our big concern.
Right. Well, to address that. I think the question of whether to use air spade or dig it carefully is still, something we can discuss. But to think about, I have in the past, you can't always get the fall that you want. But I have in the past been able to achieve a fall by weaving it, through roots and you can block it up with something to get it, or sometimes it just doesn't work, but if the effort is to save a tree, which is what we are tasked to do, then it may be worth worth investigating, but that's to be discussed. I looked at it, before we left and digging may be an option. I mean,
Yes, sir.
maybe. But do you have more questions? Because I have a couple of questions about the sod removal. W- I tried to picture this in my mind yesterday as I was thinking about it. Is there any sod to be removed back where the willow oak and the water oak are?
Yes, sir.
You will be, is that on the backside front or all around? I just don't.
All around. So all the sod that is on their property will be, we're asking to be removed and then replaced with.
With the
new-
zoysia, right? Rather,
The term sod loosely in a 30-year-old house. It's the original sod that came when we bought the house. It is in.
It needs to be updated.
Mostly weeds. Mostly it's weeds. Yeah.
right. So do me a favor and talk with me again about the depth of the sod cutter. So you did say it's a very shallow excavation, and I do understand that. And generally speaking, if you get just below the blades, is that right, of grass?
You get right where the, yes, sir, correct. You are basically skimming off really just the top. You're leaving some of the roots of that turf actually in the ground. They're gonna die off.
Right.
Just produce more organic matter in that turf. But you are literally skimming the top. I mean, the goal of that when you do it is to cut it and leave all the dirt because that makes it
Right.
easier on us to pick it up and get it out. It's a lot lighter, it's cheaper. And then the roots that are left that's not gonna regenerate, especially once we resod over it with the zoysia, and the zoysia is such a thick mat that ain't coming back, but it is literally, just below the root surface. And it'll take us, what we'll do is we'll set our depth, we'll run 3 feet down there by the sidewalk. We'll peel it back and go, hey, we're a ½ inch off. We need to reset this, move it a ½ inch up and start cutting. And then what you'll see when you cut is you'll see a ton of white little root hairs, fibers that are left on top of the ground right there. That's how you know you're at the perfect.
Well, that was my question is, can you remove those with, and not remove them at the depth you were describing and not have the grass, the turf, regenerate from those
Yes.
left roots? And your experience is they don't regenerate?
No, sir, it's not going to. You are cutting so much of that out of there, and once you put that Empire zoysia is so thick, there is no shot that those St. Augustine roots that are left in there are coming back.
Okay.
And it's in a perfect world, you're cutting down 2 or 3 inches, throwing down some new topsoil, and then sodding over the top of that once you grade it. But in order to try to conserve as much topsoil as possible, that's the new way everybody does this kind of stuff. You just skin the top of it and resod right over the top.
There's a ton of nutrients stored in that root mat that you're leaving behind. A ton of nutrients.
It's a
I mean,
tough-
all the good stuff's there in the roots because they've been yanking on it for years.
Correct.
As long as it's not too thick to be a challenge to the zoysia going on top. But that's your job. That's your
Yes,
business.
Yeah, I have a degree in it. This is what, and this is what.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's all those microfiber roots that have been soaking up, NP and K for the last 30 years.
Right.
They're left on top and that's just organic matter built right back in.
I like the sound of that.
And as far as Mrs. Campbell made a point, the trees, soak up in the ones in the backyard, soak up a bunch of water and stuff like that. That is 100% accurate. But the Empire zoysia, that is a huge, puller of water. The trees on the lot are gonna allow it to not have to be watered as much, because the shade issue on it's just not gonna take the heat stress, or not gonna have the heat stress that most grass would. But if those 2 trees are approved back there, the zoysia that's going back in, that will absorb as much, if not more, than what those 2 oak trees are back there in the back. No question on that. It's a tough, sustainable grass. It doesn't require, I think it requires 2 pounds of nitrogen per year, which is low. A lot lower than what St. Augustine, healthy St. Augustine would require. It's a tough grass. Gets a little bit large patch, but on your side, it's pretty easy to take care of. more sustainable, obviously, what I should say.
Were there trees in the front to be removed?
No, sir. So that's, they, at one point, they wanted to remove that lava valley pine on the back right side of the house. Because in my opinion, in the opinion of another arborist, 20, 30 years ago, the top of that tree was knocked out because it has 4 codominant branches coming up at one spot. But I'm going to plant plantation. Not a lot of them do that, and if they do, we thought, it's just not extremely healthy. It's got sap leaching from it, but, didn't look like that one's gonna get approved, so they left them. There's 12 trees total on the property. They want the 3 removed in the back. There's a small maple, about 8-inch in diameter. It's not a very attractive tree at all, and it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. As far as when the new design goes in, it really doesn't fit. So that one was asked to be removed. And then the 2 oaks in the back, the water and the willow. The water oak is leaning, it's just got a natural curve, and I don't think that's phototropic. I think it is just leaning back that way. Because in front of it, there's no trees. If anything, I think it was coming up through the front of the house. And it's been limbed, and they've had arborists out there to cut on the floor, and it's just not doing what it needs to do. Once it gets to maturity, it's gonna hollow out anyway. It's a water oak.
Right.
The willow oak beside it is one-sided. They had some bad limbs on it, had the arborist cut them as well. It does have a girdling root on the front of it, probably a 2 or 3 inch root. Yes, sir, that's it there, or whoever's controlling that. Justin, thank you. And if you look right there, Justin, scroll back up. Thank you. See the water that's puddled up in front of that tree?
Yeah.
That's where the proposed patio is gonna go. It's an extension off of this one. And those 2 trees have done what trees do. They create a little knoll as their apex roots rise up. And the drainage, if you look to the right, the yard is supposed to drain. You can catch the drain out of the back right corner of that picture. The yard is supposed to drain to there, correct? The knoll right there, you see how in between the wet spot and that drain, there is no water puddled up. Water's not moving to the right of that, right in there. There is no water moving through there. The water is supposed to be going that way. I've shot the yard with grade 2 or 3 times, and everything besides in a few spots where around that tree where it's just risen up, the grade falls right to that drain, which would make sense whenever Mr. Hill built the house. I'm sure they swept it to the town's drain. But taking those 2 trees out there, they're not, I understand they're considered a grand tree on the textbook. They are far from attractive, seeing as how they're one-sided. And then the drainage issue, the girdling root on one, and then just overall ease of the landscape plan when we put that patio in back there, not having to have tree protection around it, and it allows us to continue with the design, which will have plants around it, just not more trees. But if we needed to mitigate those 2 trees with something back there, they are open to it over there by where that electrical box will be on the left side of that yard, putting in a tree over there and trying to mitigate some of that.
Okay, when we say mitigate, in fact, there's a possibility. You mentioned something about crepe myrtles, and we would probably want to mitigate with a canopy tree there instead. Is that still a possibility?
So I'll ask them, they can say that before, that's fine. When we had our meeting with Mr. Clark, Mr. Carpenter and Ms. Schuler a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, we asked which list of trees was approved. And we pulled up the list, and crepe myrtles were on that list.
That was in a separate category though,
Okay,
as an understory tree, not a canopy tree. I mean, they serve different purposes. Sometimes it's inappropriate to, particularly if you're dealing with numbers of trees, to say, okay, you need 5 willow oaks here. Well, they're not gonna live, they're not gonna do well in future. But you can have understory trees, which a crepe myrtle would be. Can't be too understory because you want it to flower, and if it's in the shade, it's not gonna flower very well. It's gonna get leggier than they do when they're in the open.
Sure.
But that's why that's there. And if they were willing to consider that in their discussions, I didn't know that you would talk to Jesse and everyone else. Then maybe that's so. In terms of the mitigation, if that was brought up.
Well, and we didn't necessarily discuss like using crepe myrtles to mitigate it. We just asked if that would have been since it was on the list. And if it's voted no, that's not on the list, and it's not. I know around town hall here, it's flooded with crepe myrtles and palms, and that would be easy to put back there.
Yes.
It would give them some color. Palms stay green year round. The crepe myrtle would give them some pop of color. And on the left side of that house there, if we were to put in another, say you put in a 3-inch DBH, another willow oak or a live oak or whatever, it's eventually going to cause a shade issue back there that I think they're trying to get rid of. And there are some other bigger trees there. There's a big loblolly, a big gum, and then in the neighbor's yard, there's some bigger trees. I think the new tree that would go in is going to grow out towards the yard. Follow the sun,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right.
But that's up to y'all, if y'all would be open to.
We had an oak taken out in that very back corner 18 months ago, 20 months ago. That and gum tree was on the corner of the house. I mean, so that permit, but no problems.
The place where they were talking about mitigating the tree, there was a previous oak taken out right there.
Because,
Why was that tree dead? That one was dead.
okay, that's a good reason.
And the gum tree that was near the big loblolly pine in the back was about 8 feet off the corner of the house.
That's why they took
But
it.
it was, this is one question I have. You talk about the mitigation zones and we can't take out the one tree because of the other tree in the picture there. The gum tree was the same distance from that big loblolly pine as those two are apart, and nothing was said
About what? Proximity
about proximity.
and the one relying on the other? What, was that mutual support? Oh, okay,
So yes, so basically relying on that.
okay.
And then, as far as taking out that water over there, if you cut it back, as far as you can to the ground, obviously to try to hide the stump, but leaving a stump right there, introduce all kind of disease, fungus, insects, that introduces a world of problems right there for that willow oak, in my opinion, the research that I've done.
Justin, did you approve any of these trees?
I approved the water oak on the left. It looked like it had a corrected codominant button in it. So the remaining main leader was kind of
Okay.
moving over and it was, somewhat crowding into that willow oak. The willow oak, I noted the curling root at the base. I wasn't really that concerned with that. That should have been cut. It was slightly, had a slight uneven canopy from full work. See the cuts right here. Other than that, it was as far as health wise, it was in decent shape. But I agree with them saying, just removing the one isn't gonna. It's still gonna have a mountain area there. And their goal is to get water drainage into that back corner, so. Approval of the one will accomplish that.
So the mound, has that profound effect that even if it stayed that willow oak, that it's still a problem for drainage?
Correct, yes. What I would probably argue that the willow is actually more of a problem than the wall, and the tree's healthier than the water.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna live longer. It's gonna get bigger.
Yeah, yes, sir, and it's on the side of the drain, so it's actually more in the way, quote unquote.
Okay.
It's the way. Kind of see that there, but I agree with Justin, taking out one right there does not solve the problem.
Let me just ask one question, and this may be a stretch, but I want to ask it anyway. Is there a way that you can put underground drainage, through that wet area you see there, have a catch basin there, something like that? Or is there not enough room to do that, where you can run that water still to the corner of the yard?
So in order to do that, because that was one option we looked at, and leaving basically behind the patio, just making a giant flower bed right there. Because turf, there's not enough room for turf. So if a drain goes in, number one, that's gonna be right in that critical root zone for
Mhm.
sure. And number two, trying to get that area right there is kind of a depression. It's not as depressed as that knoll is tall for sure.
Right.
So we were working, it's still above the drain. I forgot what my laser said on how many inches it is, but you have to come out towards the fence and then fall in. I would be concerned about how fast that water would get out of there and that drain backing up, and it's gonna have to make a turn. We could put a sweep on or a 45, but the water would eventually have to turn, which on drains, we try to keep them straight as possible, you know, to prevent clogging. But as far as putting a drain in right there, trying to put a drain in right there, where by the time the patio is at where we want to put it, the back of the seating wall, and then you have a sloped bed. Trying to put a drain in right there you're gonna be digging all over that tree, trying to get the drain in there, in my opinion. Basically, right there at the base of the knoll, where that water ends, would be where that drain is. And then putting a 4-inch pipe coming out of there, it would definitely impact the critical roots of that tree.
Well, if you were to use, here again, bringing up you're gonna think I own stock in the company and I don't. But if you were to use an air spade as opposed to excavate mechanically, would that not alleviate a large part of the concern about impacting the root zone?
I don't believe so, no, sir. Because once again, those roots are gonna have to be cut. Right there, especially around a surface rooted tree like that, over that poplar on the side, it has to be a solid pipe. That black corrugated is not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna be able to, that's gonna be so close to that tree, the roots coming off of that 2, 3, 4 inches in diameter for sure. There's no way, we're not gonna be able to move them to get that pipe on the slope that we want.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted
No, no, no,
you.
no. I'm just saying, it's a stiff piece of pipe. That pipe has no bend in it, so it's basically gotta lay in that hole, and I don't see that happening there without really cutting back on some roots.
So you're talking about the willow oak?
Yes, sir.
If we, further exploring that, if we were to, let's see. To achieve what you want to do with moving drainage with a pipe, if that's what we wanted to discuss, what is the furthest away from that willow oak that you could install your pipe?
Oh, well, it's kind of a loaded question. What you talking about, like without hurting the tree?
No, just install the pipe. What's the furthest
Oh,
away?
Stop pipe a foot from that tree, but what I'm saying is, the closer I get to the tree, the harder it is. I can install that pipe. Oh, you're talking about.
I know. How far away can you come?
Be function.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha. 7, 8 feet, something like that.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Or what I was thinking, that if you were to come as far as you possibly can back towards the retaining wall of the seat wall.
Correct.
As far as you possibly can, and air spade the trench that the pipe will go in, and then see what roots are there. I mean, if you think about the root zone of a tree, it's not like they're not 8 inches apart, fanning out in a symmetrical pattern. That tree looked fairly healthy to me. I would think that depending on the size, and if you didn't disturb too many of the fibrous roots, that you could remove up to 3, maybe 4 roots from that tree and have the tree be just fine, because you've got 3/4 of the rest of the root zone left intact.
Well, on the back side of that tree, the root zone's already been interfered with. I guess it's FCG, Dominion, whoever. There's a line back there behind that tree, and there's also that pipe behind that tree, and both of those in the critical root zone. So the back side of that tree has been compromised already at 2 separate times. Then we compromised it on the front. And if we were to put in a drain, and then if the water oak is taken down on the left, and there's no way for us to get that stuff out of there without compromising it there. It would be extremely difficult, and a lot of time and money would have to go into saving that tree.
It's probably got a lifespan now of not very long.
That's the thing. I mean, it's keeping that as much as, I mean, I plant trees every day. I put in thousands of them a year. The last thing I want to do is take down the tree, but that one right there, those two are really in the way of making this whole plan easier back there. For sure. I'm not saying it could, but
No, go ahead.
I'm not saying it could not be done. Anything is possible out there, but the root zone of that tree is going to be interfered with
how long ago was it that Dominion, or whatever utility, was the disturbance done? Do we know?
I do not know.
House was built in 94.
Yeah,
The drain system and the power system were put in for that street.
in 94.
Yeah.
So it's over 20 years.
30 years.
Yeah, I mean, and you as a horticulturalist, you know that the roots on the backside of that tree have certainly regenerated, grown in over 30 years. So I don't know that that really holds, forgive the pun, holds water in this argument. And you know, I agree with Justin that the water oak, I would support the removal of the water oak and the maple. But that's a good, healthy laurel oak, and I'm having real problems with removing it. I'm trying to be, in my thinking, understanding of improving the landscape and all of that. But it just troubles me to approve removing a healthy tree.
Understand, and I get, that's what y'all do. It is done every day in Somerville. And they're trying to keep as many trees as possible. That's why they didn't ask for that, poplar tree to be removed. It's within 10 feet. It would make my job easier taking that out so I can put the drain right there by the fence. They're trying to keep as many trees as possible. They don't like the gums in the front yard. And so they're trying to scale back as much damage to healthy trees as they can do in order to achieve the goal. You know, they've been here and played by the rules for the last 35 years. I really think this is kind of an easy call.
And looking into the future, that tree is eventually gonna have to mount this, right? Especially big different, just don't think it's that healthy of a tree. And if we were able to plant a canopy tree in the back left corner as part of the mitigation, that seems like a reasonable alternative, or at least a solution.
Yeah, right over on the left. That makes the most logistical sense for sure. And another thing too, if this oak, after we put the drainage right there, if it does, and I know we could use some root barriers and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan because that causes roots to go down and they have to circling back, but we could put root barriers in there, but the effects that it may have on that drain and the potential for the seeding wall one day, if the roots were to cross over that drain and get to it, it poses more of a threat in my opinion, because the seeding wall would be, it's 14 feet from that tree. That's a 21-inch tree, so the critical root zone is already 7 feet into that patio. And so we're gonna have to cut a lot of that root zone out of there to keep the design that they want. And like I said, putting the drain in right there, once those roots regenerate and start shooting off new roots, they're gonna swallow that pipe eventually one day. The root's gonna win, there's no question. It's just a matter of when, but since they're dumping in this amount of money into this job here, this is gonna be their forever place. You know, there's not many people willing to put $60,000, $70,000 into a landscape to improve their home. And so this is kind of they're trying to make this permanent, and if we can put one more tree on the back over there, kind of out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And another thing too, I mean, with the turf and all, it wants to go back through there. Obviously shade issue on the turf, and then all the roots that be coming off of that oak. It's harder for the turf. And so it makes things a lot easier to have them two gone if we could put one into the back left, kind of to the left of that, where you see the corner of the campus grass come through.
Could we carry the discussion about the partial root removal that Mr. Burbidge suggested as a possibility? Don't take everything, just take, you know, if you take so many of these and you have all the feeder roots left, that, you know, that's a reasonable compromise if it's possible, but it depends on how close you are to the tree. Does any of that discussion apply to the yellow poplar or a partial? Or is it going to be the same thing? Are you going to be so close to the tree that it's impossible?
So we can be within about 8 foot of that tree. It depends on where the gas line comes through there. And I won't know that until they dig it up. They'll paint a line, but
Right.
very rarely are they dead
Yeah.
on that. So basically in line with that little unit, that's the poplar there. To the right, in about the middle of that gate is where I could go. Right about there is where I could go. We're gonna run it basically out to that unit, right down the backside, and then 45 it out to the yard. Which we don't want to do, but I do not want to dig down the foundation of that house, just any farther than I want to go. It's the only reason why we moved the pipe there.
So how far away from that unit would it be?
From the tree, about 8 feet. And that's a. Yes, it is. It's
19?
an 18-inch
18.
DBH tree, correct, yes, sir. So it'd be about halfway through the critical root zone. Which I'm sure that when we start digging through there, I'm sure that root zone is up against the foundation. It's just a matter of time before that starts causing problems. So cutting those roots there and putting in a root barrier would actually probably be a good option, in my opinion, to get it off of the foundation a little bit.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I have no problems in installing the pipe in where we talked about when we were on site. The closer you can get to the house, the better I feel about it. And you're right, that being the poplar, if you can get a root barrier in there against that foundation, you're buying, as you know, 15 years of time they won't have to mess with it if you use one of
Maybe
the
more.
herbicide impregnated ones. If you use a solid one of plastic, then you've bought 30, 40 years.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
On the backside.
I don't believe so, nothing that I uploaded. But they saw the water called up the other day.
Oh, you've got a problem there that I understand you need to repair that. Yeah, that's not a problem. That's no problem in my mind.
It right there, like I said, as close as I can get to the foundation without disturbing any structural, there's a concrete slab around somewhere, I'm sure there's a footer. As far as I can get there without disturbing that footer, we'll go as far as we can, as long as, I'm above or to the side of the gap.
Sure, right. No,
Yeah.
that works for me.
Well, also, I know we talked on Friday when we met out there, the possibility of putting a pop-up. So you wouldn't even come close to the root or not as close to the root zone of that tree.
Yes, sir. So and that's one thing, after y'all left, we walked around and looked, so I wanted to put a pop-up right there at that gate. The problem that is going to occur there, I believe, is there's not enough fall from that gate out. We've got to get 6-7 feet past that gate.
Yeah.
Is what I was just seeing by putting a level on it. I haven't shot it with a laser, but I put my level on and we could try to cut some dirt off right there. And see if we disturb any surface roots and trying to put a pop-up in there. But either way, from what we saw, if you put a pop-up there as well, the water's gonna drain out. We have to build a little bit of a bank against the foundation just so it doesn't run down the side, but, no, that was the first thing me and then walked to the other day when we got home, when you got home.
Yeah, that may be an issue right there. If you're
Yes,
right, I've got a pop-up in my yard and just when we have a big rain and you walk around that pop-up, it can get pretty soft right there as well. So being right there in the pathway might not be the best idea.
And if, especially during like a heavy rain right there, since that whole left side back there is basically a huge flower bed. A little bit of debris, a little bit of soil, mulch, leaves, stuff like that comes through. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, we got a frog chopper like we did the other night, 2 o'clock in the morning, that pop-up's not gonna be able to breathe because that's gonna get covered up.
Yeah.
So to get it down, out a little bit would be a little bit better option for sure to get that water going. Just away from the house.
Any other discussion?
Well, I want to look at the front yard briefly, but before we leave this one, I just have to, as I think about the proposal for mitigation to plant a 3-inch tree with the minimal canopy that it's going to have, in my mind, doesn't compare to the canopy that'll be lost from the willow oak. It's just if you're concerned about deluges of rain and all of that, the canopy from that willow oak is helping to mitigate that somewhat, and you're going to take it away. And it will be 30 years at least before the 3-inch tree gains anywhere near the height of the canopy to help mitigate that. So so it's not a fair trade in my mind, and I have to think about that. But getting here to the front, I mean, is any, but you want to talk about the back anymore? Anybody else? I'm
No,
sorry.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the chairman's cloud here, and I don't mean to. But if I look at the trees on the, what would be the right side of the house, they are. So the idea is to, correct me if I'm wrong, to take out all of the sod and install shrubs. And then take out the shrubs that are at the base of the tree and install shrubs. How close will the shrubs be installed to the base of the tree?
So that's gonna depend on when we scrape that grass away, and that's been a mulch bed for however many years. It's been a while since it's been
Yeah, that's
scraped
been-
back.
That's been that way.
I want to pull it back, and I remember Mr. Burns walking, you asked me how far we're gonna pull it back, and I said maybe another couple, a foot or
Yeah.
two or something. But honestly, that was one thing I thought about this weekend. Once we pull that mulch layer back, and I see where those April roots are coming up, those surface roots are right there off that tree, I'm obviously gonna come off as far as I can to where I'm not disturbing them. And not, we're gonna come as far out as we can to where it doesn't look goofy, as a bad term there, but
Right.
something, maybe 6, 8 feet off the tree, something like that, and then bed around them. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think it would hurt the tree in any mind. I don't want near my guys digging holes next to all those roots. Yeah, I'm trying to get as far away as I can possibly. Make it easier on us and it does benefit the tree for sure. But the junipers that are around them right there, those are surface rooted trees. Now junipers do take holes. They are hard to dig. But it is a surface, there's not gonna be any kind of tap on that, whenever we pull them out. I do not see, it's so close to the tree, those roots are so strong in that tree, I don't see it being, harming that tree at all, for sure. But basically, right there where the edge of those beds are, right there, maybe somewhere about there is probably where we'll put those plants in and then have a foot or two of flower bed on the outside. Something like that.
So let me ask one question, then I want to go back to something. So, between those two groups of trees, between those two beds, there's the sort of curved area where there is no grass. Is that a desire line or is that a drainage flow?
No, that is a drainage issue, and that is one that we wish to correct.
Okay.
So you can see the gutter right there on the left side, that brown gutter. There's also another one right there by the flag in the bottom that shoot out.
Okay.
But what I want to do, the easiest way to drain these, we can either go through the middle of those two trees where that dormant spot is, or we could bring it down the side of the driveway. Either way, I would like to put drainage in there to get this water out to the street. We'll put a pop-up down there by the road. There's not a sewer drain right there. We tied into that, but put a pop-up down there closer to the sidewalk. Because that is strictly a drainage issue, right there. I mean, there is a shade issue there as well. Don't get me wrong. But the Empire's always will be able to handle that, whereas that St. Augustine is not.
Okay. Okay. And then if you'll jog your memory, when we were out in the front there was a space where I think I asked the question, or maybe Claude did, that could you not just extend the bed from, let's see if I can see it. Well, if you could extend the bed so that you actually joined the two groupings of trees. Because it was an area of about what, 8 feet wide?
Yes, I know what you're talking about, right through there.
And because if you don't, what's left, because I said aesthetically, it looks odd to me because it's just two nice beds that are interrupted by just a place to mow, but by just sod. Whereas if you were just connect them as beds, then I feel a lot more comfortable about any work that might occur around the roots of those trees.
Sure. I don't think that's what they want to see. See, because the set.
Do those two beds when I go down to walk or to visit neighbors.
And aesthetically on my end, I actually like seeing grass break up like a huge bed like that. Not now that, the flower bed is hardscape, it's kind of like breaking up hardscape with plants, you know, it softens it up. I think sending grass through there aesthetically, actually, I think it actually looks a little bit better. I understand your point of it right there, making that one big bed, and it makes it easier in a way, but we're gonna also have to plant something in there. And since we're going to, making a bed right there, we're gonna have to cut the sod out of there anyway. I don't see what that,
Well, why would you have to cut the sod?
because there's sod there, it's just not doing very well.
Right, but I mean, you know, you can spray it one time and cover it with mulch and then just a couple of applications after that. And aesthetically, I'm not so worried about aesthetic as I am what's good for the tree. I mean, to have a mulch area is going to be much better for the tree. But I mean, if that's not something that you're willing to consider, then I'll just have to consider that in my thoughts too.
Did like, Strickland's idea of consolidating the beds on the front of the house and the side of the house into that one bed with two trees, making that one big bed.
Correct, because at first, the first design was to have two separate beds there and to have a separate strip on the right corner right there, yeah, with that cursor.
Now that doesn't. work.
Right, and that, we agree that aesthetically, that doesn't look good, it just makes sense to flow that all the way around. But originally, it was two separate beds, and then we decided to design that as one. We would like to keep that as two separate beds for sure.
Okay.
And the drain issue right there would be a problem too, if we were to make that a mulch bed, in my opinion, because I don't know how we're gonna, keeping the pop-up right there clean would be kind of, you get a heavy rain, mulch is gonna move a little bit. You'd have to take it outside of that. We're gonna have to take the drain a little bit farther. So that's kind of,
So I have a question of you. If you're suggesting that we do one large bed in the front, so then we have no sod up against the house, but we're just sodding a little fringe along the upper edge of the sidewalk? How would that
no,
work?
what he's saying is, Justin, can you, that area right there, he's saying, right, you see with the cursor, he's saying make that one big
One
bed.
big bed, I get it, tying into the other, I mean, we just have one big bed across the front of the house.
Right.
And then, there's our sod. Do we just, again, is it just the
Yeah.
fringe along the upper edge of the sidewalk?
But this is not to scale. It's not nearly that wide. It's not, that's certainly not to scale. This was a much more narrow area, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's saying you still have sod up there near the house, but this bed would kind of,
What's happened in between the homes and is that a bed as
No,
well?
so the bed would come,
Between the 3 trees and the 2 trees.
Correct.
Straight line.
that would be a bed on the left side, Justin, or whoever's controlling the cursor. Back over there, that's a bed there,
Right,
correct?
I understand, that's in our original plan.
Right.
Now, he's talking about perhaps connecting those two as a bed.
Can you draw that for us so she can see that visually?
I can't draw.
Or move the cursor, I mean?
That's what I'm trying to see.
So making that a bed, what are we doing in between the hollies? And is that all bed?
Oh, that's a bed, right.
No, I wasn't suggesting that.
Then I'm misunderstanding.
No, I'm suggesting just connecting those two groups of trees with a bed.
Making a bed between the two trees right there and leaving the grass behind them.
Yes.
That is up to y'all. I see what you're saying now. I apologize. I thought you were saying make that entire thing a bed as well.
No. But it minimizes some of it's just good for the trees. But that's not something that I'm going to argue about it. It's good for the trees.
Okay.
And
surely when your folks are digging holes, they encounter a large root, the position of that plant to be going in is going to change. And you're not going to cut a great big root. That some will exist between those two clusters of trees. You have to walk around them, which you surely will do,
100%. So that's what.
as well as in proximity to the existing bed line as well.
Absolutely. That's what, and when we design this out, I'll say, all right, this is what looks the best. If we can get our 5 holes in right here, this is what we want to do. But it's like, all right, on the third one, we hit a 4-inch root right here. Okay,
Yeah.
this one has to move. You
Sure.
know, no question about that. No, absolutely. That won't be an issue.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for dragging this out, but I have one more question, I think. And that if we go back to the backyard and the retaining wall and all of that, I'm sure that you've considered it, but is there no way to tweak your design for that so that the water oak is removed and the willow oak stays?
So we looked at that and we looked at moving the fire pit to the right or to the left. Our design in the backyard is very symmetrical. That destroys that symmetrical. I didn't draw the small beds around the side of the flower bed, but it would basically come off of both corners of the house, come up 3, 4 foot, the width of a bed, and come and stop at the flower, or stop at the patio, and then around the back, it'll be symmetrical around, or we have symmetrical plantings go around, these gardenias around the back, and then some lantana, sable, minors on each side. So when you look out of their back window of the house right there from the porch, everything lines up. It's symmetrical right there. Aesthetically, that would look much, much better. But that is one thing we did look, and I drew it out, painted it, stubbed it out. If we were to put the fire pit on the side, that was not, correct me if I'm wrong, that was not what they wanted. It ruins the flow of a square patio. If you do it up to the side like that, it ruins the symmetrics, for sure. Yeah, and yeah, if you want me to show you the landscape plan, I have a drawing of it right here.
I don't think I need to see it.
Like I said, it's symmetrical all the
That
way
what you
around that
have?
right there. And
That's
we
what
had
you
talked
showed me.
about actually.
Yeah.
We had talked about putting this would be somewhere else, we might be able to mitigate something on the right side of that yard. And it's not necessarily adding more, and I know it's not a canopy tree. They have 3 rows of Cherons that I suggested to get rid of. They want to keep them. They're big. I mean, they're 10, 12 foot tall. Planting them back there instead of us scrapping them. I know it's not a canopy tree, but it's something they're trying to save. If that helps any.
You're talking about the right-hand side as we view the backyard.
Correct, right, just a little bit down, right and about there.
Okay.
That's where we have them on the plan here. They're probably 1.5 inches in caliber or something like that, but 3 of them, they could, and I get it, they're not gonna be 40 foot tall and oak trees, I 100% understand, but it is something to try to soak up some more water and provide some shade.
How tall are they, you say?
They're 10, 12 foot.
They're gonna be hard to move?
They will be hard to move. Yes, sir.
Man, they've been there a while.
Sir.
They've been there a while.
Yeah.
They have been there a while, absolutely, and this comes on me as a landscaper, we were hoping to have this permit, sooner rather than later before grass went dormant. I would feel much better about moving them as the fall went on, actually, sometime November, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And what we could do, I don't know if and when this would be approved, but say if it's approved today, we get the permit tomorrow and go to work. I will wait until Thanksgiving to move those trees
Sure.
anyway, just to try to get them there.
Is another conceivable option is the room, to have another canopy tree there?
If we move the Rose of Sharon more toward the front from centered on that fence line, we could plant something near where the, maple.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, because that's gone.
But if we planted one, you're talking about planting one on the left side and then one on the right as well?
Correct.
If we were to plant 2 trees, and that would keep the symmetrics going back there.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay.
So put the Rose of Sharon's kind of closer to the gate and then put the oak behind it.
Do the
Or
Rose of,
whatever tree you put behind it.
do the Rose of Sharon have to move for the design?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was
Yeah,
just thinking he could do that instead of moving the Rose of Sharon and maybe save a little money, but because that's a big job.
Yeah, well, this is the design we have those 3 rows of Sharon's over there, because they were wanting to put other plants around the house. That will be up to them. And yes, it would save them some money because yeah, they're big.
Yeah, that could take you a while to do that, right?
Correct. So that will be their call there. But either way, if that would help to mitigate, if they had a tree on the right side to match the left.
Okay.
As far as drainage or anything, I don't see that being a problem at all.
Well, it's again, the future of more water take up, more shade, more interception. Any other thoughts? If not, I'd like,
Let me just one thing real quick and just a statement, I guess, but I know you're gonna be putting irrigation in, and we talked about that, and you're not planning on compromising any of the root systems of these
We-
existing trees with that system, correct?
Correct. We will be, my goal is not to hurt any trees. I am trying to just, stay as far away from the critical root zone as possible. Number one, my trencher's not gonna handle it. So staying as far away from bigger roots as we can is our goal. And it's a 1-inch pipe that's gonna be going there. Now, this yard right here requires an 8-zone system. Reason being, because the sidewalk in the front will have to have a separate zone to water on the other side of the sidewalk, the town property. And then, there's a lot of drip line in this yard for all the new plants that are going in. I don't warranty anything without a drip system that we put in, so we have to put that in. But that pipe doesn't have to come all the way to the front, except for one time. So the trench will probably be, it's a 3-inch wide trench. It'll be about 13 inches down. That gives us 10 inches below we'll have 3 1-inch pipes and then 10 inches of dirt, something like that. That's standard for us, just about everybody else that I've worked for. And yes, we obviously try to stay as far away as possible from any kind of trees, and especially sending, like, say we needed to get water into an area, but it's like there's some turf here and there's some flower bed here, and they require different amounts of water. We will dig the trench as shallow as possible, to get at least, we're not pulling 13 inches through the entire thing. Say we only need to get one pipe from here to there. We're only going to go down 6 inches, something like that. Maybe 7, to get it down, just as long as it won't freeze.
right,
So we try to be as conservative as we can in that matter, for sure.
Okay,
And like, we won't put drip and stuff on the established trees that are there, the ones that they want to leave,
Mhm.
not required, no reason
Yeah.
to water them for 20 minutes a week.
Okay, thanks. That's all I
all
got.
right. I'd like to make the motion that we first permit removal of both the water oak and the willow oak with the condition that 2 canopy trees be placed as we described. Additionally, that the roots on the yellow poplar be cut as close as conceivably possible to the house and a root barrier installed. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more last minute thoughts? Comments?
Well, I still have a problem with removing that willow oak.
I know.
What is it? I'll see how, I'll decide when you call for a vote. It just seems a horrible waste to me. For aesthetics and when it could be done. If you grind the stump of the water oak and pull that away and change that grade, you remove a good bit of the knoll. And I think that a talented designer, and I think you are, and certainly a very good, credible landscape technician, landscaper.
There's always a way around anything. It makes it a lot more expensive, and a lot harder on us. This will take a big chunk of time. It's going to cost them a lot more, and to grind the stump right there. I don't care who you have, those trees are depending on each other. They're too close, they're intertwined. And so grinding the stump of that water oak down sufficiently, I think will impact that willow oak for sure.
Oh, the reason we had to blend is whatever the design, the water on the left-hand
Yeah.
side was going into.
You're going into each other, sure.
I mean, they were.
They're relying on one another, I believe.
And that crown on that, it's asymmetrical, yeah,
And just taking the knoll that's back there, taking out that willow oak is what gets that water to move. That water oak's just leaning real bad, and it's not as healthy of a tree, and it's not aesthetically pleasing. And even if it does get to maturity one day, it's 60, 70 years old, it is going to hollow. That's what they do.
Yeah, I agree with you about the water oak. You have no argument for me on the water oak. It's the willow oak.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, taking out the water doesn't solve our problem, because that knoll on the Willow Oak is where that drainage issue is. That's the big thing there. And putting 2 other trees in that backyard is not what they want to do, but that will help, for sure. And if we put 2 3-inch trees in there, that makes up 6 inches. That's a third of that diameter on that tree. And give it 7, 8, 10 years, and it'll make up the width of that tree. If they're kept up and stuff like that, which I'm sure dumping the money that they're going to, that they will. And like I said, this is done every day in Somerville, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, lots of bad things are done in Somerville, and we don't need to, I'm not looking to compound it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't consider this a bad thing right here. I consider this a major improvement to that neighborhood, for sure.
Yeah, and I think leaving the Willow Oak would make it yet even better, but I'm not trying to be arguing.
I get your side.
I just want to say one thing, before we vote, and that is, yes, the crown is asymmetric. If notwithstanding all these other threats that are created by grinding the stump of the water oak, having it relying on the water oak that is no longer there, an asymmetric crown alone, which is not necessarily a pretty crown, is not justification to remove a tree because of all the other reasons that we want to keep trees. But you're totally familiar with them, I'm sure.
It's not just aesthetics. Are
Right.
the reason why.
Not usually. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You may go ahead.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you for all your time.
Yeah, and thank you for your expertise.
Sorry?
I said, thank you for your expertise.
How about this question, y'all, or Remy or Justin? What's the next step on permitting?
So next step is, this is all good to go. We just have to verify that our engineering department is okay with the driveway replacement and patio. As far as impervious surface coverage goes, I don't think there's any issue there.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's right.
Previously. My only question for the driveway that I know engineering will ask is, are you gonna be replacing the curb cut? Or are you just gonna replace the portion that's on?
Yeah, so that's where, and I believe I asked, is Rebecca Zimmerman the engineering department there?
She's not, she's in the planning department, but she is somebody you would talk to.
I talked to somebody about this in North Charleston. We got to get a separate permit to cut that sidewalk out, the apron up to there. They said in the town of Somerville, we did not. That changes whatever, we'll get a separate permit for it. But yes, we will be taking it from the garage doors all the way to the curb and gutter on the street. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they'll probably just look in to see if you need an encroachment permit for that.
Right.
But otherwise, they just need planning and engineering to sign off on the impervious surface coverage.
Cool.
You and I discussed, so I'll be able to sign off on that.
Okay.
And so I would expect you guys with a permit in hand within a week.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. That sounds good. Well, if you would just email me if there's any paperwork we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to reach out to me if you don't hear anything in a couple of days. And I'll keep you
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
All right, these are linked for treatment. Once we get those permits in hand,
We can start.
and contract with.
Correct.
Yeah,
We got it.
It's
Yes.
all together, so you'll get them at the same time. It would probably be, like I said later.
That works for me.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You know what? You look nice for me.
Yeah, so I went to high school with her.
Did you really?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That's right.
No, Margaret.
Is there any other business that we need to deal with? That's all I say there. Motion,
Luke to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.